The top stories for the hour. Shaggar project set to enhance coordination and development in the rapidly urbanizing areas adjacent to Ethiopia's capital. Experts hail homegrown conflict resolution practices in Ethiopia. Hello and very warm welcome to EBC World, the voice of Pan-Africanism with Zanusam Biniam Getana, along with the technical crew to stay tuned. The newly restored National Palace is set to play a pivotal role in advancing Ethiopia's tourism sector, which prioritizes cultural heritage as a driver of economic growth, the Office of the Prime Minister stated. Building on the success of Unity Park and the growing demand for urban attractions, the National Palace will attract both domestic and international tourists and expected to boost revenues for local businesses and jobs creations across the tourism value chain. Historical and cultural landmarks like the National Palace play a pivotal role in spurring urban development and enhancing Ethiopia's global image, the office underscored. The Ministry of Finance and the World Bank have signed a $700 million loan agreement to support the implementation of the financial sector to strengthen project on Thursday, 1st December 2024, which aims to enhance the stability and sustainability of Ethiopia's financial sector. According to the ministry, the financial sector strengthening project is strategically designed to support critical financial sector reforms and recapitalization efforts of the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia and the Development Bank of Ethiopia. The financing supports the government's recent bold reform to modernize and liberalize bank operation in the country. It follows the recent decision to issue Ethiopian per 900 billion worth of government debt securities to settle CBC's non-performing loans and facilitate its recapitalization. Accordingly, a substantial portion of the funding will be allocated to recapitalizing CBE and DBE, addressing debt legacy issues, improving asset quality, and ensuring compliance with capital adequacy requirements. Moreover, it supports enhancing financial stability by strengthening the supervisory and regulatory framework of the bank sector. It supports the government's efforts to create opportunities for access to capital to enhance job creation and sustain economic growth. The agreement was signed by Ahmed Shide, Minister of Finance, representing the government of Ethiopia, and Mariam Salim, Country Director for Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, and South Sudan, with the World Bank.
Sidoma Bato.
So I'm right here in Jigjiga, the Somali state of Ethiopia. So whenever you come to like Jigjiga, the Somali state of Ethiopia.
ተመስገን ነው ሀሹ ሳሩጋት ስለ ቋንቋና ባህላችን ሲምፖዚየም Killa named after the fortified
They're like 30, 60 or even 70 meters up the cliff, and at an era where there were no dynamic ropes.
They were building this, and then when it collapsed, they saw it as an omen, and they stopped building and converted to Christianity.
Welcome back. Another development. Shaggar City was established in October 2022 as administrative entity by clustering 6 Oromia towns in the outskirts of Addis Ababa into a single administration. The initiative aimed to enhance coordination and development in the rapidly urbanizing areas adjacent to Ethiopia's capital. Mayor of the city, Teshome Adunya, said political, economic and social issues of the people are addressed after the establishment of the city.
The establishment of Shaggar established to provide the modern urban service. The establishment of urban area or Shaggar to facilitate, to speed up the investment facility, to enhance the culture, the value of its own people, So after the establishment of Shaggar, we try to address political, the economic issue of our people.
The mayor underscored that major activities have been accomplished to make the city more competent.
We have done a number of activities, like we developed a master plan, a spatial plan, that facilitates the proper land use. One of the quality of the urban evaluated by its land use in Shaggar, which make Shaggar more competent and more strong in the Horn Africa. Like we have the financial center around Koye, we have industry corridor around Galan, we have a logistic hub around Indode, we have green development belt around Manabichu and Sululta.
Teshome further said that efforts are underway to make the city smart and center of tourism.
Now we are working on adding more forest because we want to encourage like Shaggar Safari. We want to create Shaggar Safari because it's the best place for tourism, a best place for different recreation centers. So we are working on that. So we are not only smart, but we are also green. We are also inclusive. So in this regard, we are working also on the basic infrastructure. By the way, we are now working on infrastructure development road network. We already started the Great Shaggar road network, which is completely different with the standard of the federal government.
You're still on ABC World. The news continues. The Ministry of Trade and Regional Integration says it's working to contain illicit trade and contraband, both currently constraining the nation's economic growth. This came at the function where the Ethiopian Chambers of Commerce and Sectoral Association organized the 3rd National Anti-Illicit Trade Summit on livestock export, coffee export and pharmaceutical trade in Ethiopia. Shagoi Mato has attended the event and compiled the following story.
The large-scale malpractices of illicit traders in Ethiopia have posed significant threat to the economy of the country, besides risking the lives of consumers. The Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce and Sectoral Associations organized the 3rd National Anti-Illicit Livestock Export, Coffee Export and Pharmaceutical Trade Summit in Ethiopia in the presence of senior government officials, heads of government institutions and private companies. A representative from the Ethiopian Pharmaceutical Association, Orku Badada, said that the illicit traders in the pharmaceutical sector are risking the lives of patients and harming the economy of the country.
When you see illicit pharmaceutical trade, you see from two perspectives. One, economical, the other, health cost. So it is a double burden. It poses a double burden From one side, it harms the economic status of the country. It discourages legal professional who are conducting their business ethically and professionally. On the other hand, when you see the health cost, these drugs, most of them are substandard and adulterated, and sometimes they are fake. Totally, they do not contain active pharmaceutical ingredient, which is responsible for the therapeutic outcome of the patient.
Hoarding of products, unlicensed trading and inflated prices are among the malpractices illicit traders do that affect the market system of the country. Secretary General of the Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce and Sectoral Association, Qananiis Alemi, acknowledged the large-scale malpractice of illicit trading in the country. He also praised the strict measures taken by the government to control contraband and illicit trade.
The practice is still there, but the practice is reducing from time to time, because of the macroeconomic reform that I have mentioned before, and because of course, this summit is the third summit, and the causes are being identified by researchers, and the government was taking action towards reducing those factors that could lead to the illicit trade practice in Ethiopia.
On the occasion, Minister of Trade and Regional Integration, Kasahuun Gofe, expounded the remarkable regulatory measures undertaken by the government to reduce illicit trade, especially in the export sector. Moreover, the minister warned illicit traders to refrain from their malpractices.
Illicit traders are operating because of their undisciplined behavior, not because of the presence of convenient strategies for contraband. I urge these traders to refrain from their malpractices that negatively impact the country. The Ministry of Trade and Regional Integration, along with Customs Commission, Federal and Regional Police, is taking strict measures against illegal traders, and we will sustain the achievements brought by the macroeconomic policy reform to create healthy trading system.
Secretary General of the Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce and Sectoral Association, Qananiis Alemi, pointed out that the Sectoral Association is working on creating awareness to the public and called for coordination among institutions and security forces against illicit trading. A representative from the Ethiopian Pharmaceutical Association also urged the government to support local manufacturing companies and take strict regulatory measures.
The most important thing is creating awareness, and business membership organizations such as the Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce and Sectoral Association and the regional chambers are expected to devote and commit themselves in creating awareness to the society as a whole. There has to be a coordinated effort among the government organization, for example, the police, the customs authority, the trade and regional integration ministry, and the offices at the regional level, and the society at large. Even the business community, traders, are expected to be coordinated and need to work together so as to really minimize the practice of illicit trade and the consequential effects that it has to overall economic development.
There should be a strict regulatory system. Our regulation is loose, and it must be empowered from human capacity side. It must be strengthened by facilities, technological packages, and trainings, I think. So the regulatory must be strengthened. There should be some capacity building, human resource, facility, technological package, and other things.
During the summit, discussions were held on the bottlenecks of livestock export, coffee export, and pharmaceutical trade in Ethiopia, and possible solutions are also forwarded.
That was Shagoy Mata for the report. In our final story, an international conflict resolution expert urges the nation to maximize homegrown conflict resolution practices in its relentless struggle to ensure peace. Bayisa Wakaya told EBC World that Ethiopia's indigenous peace-building efforts are bearing fruits and can bring lasting peace if a robust demobilization and reintegration process implemented. Johannes Fantaun has more on this.
Ethiopia has a rich history of using indigenous conflict resolution methods, and these practices are increasingly being recognized for their potential in building lasting peace. Recently, the Ethiopian government reached an agreement with OLA combatants in Oromia, leading to approximately 8,000 fighters laying down their arms. Baisa Wakoya, an international conflict resolution expert, recently shared his insights on this progress, speaking with ABC's Addis Dialogue program. Wakoya commended Ethiopia's tradition of using homemade conflict resolution mechanisms, highlighting their importance in fostering understanding and reconciliation. These practices, often rooted in community-based approaches, are crucial for creating lasting peace.
Every conflict has its own specific characteristics, and although there are prevailing universal guidelines of conflict resolution mechanisms, each country has to design its own mechanisms which emanates from its past history and practices. And I think what I'm observing recently, especially with the part of Oromo Liberation Army giving up arms and joining the civilian movement, it shows that every nation, especially in this situation like Ethiopia, can design their own mechanism of conflict resolution, which is factual now, which may not work elsewhere, even in our neighboring countries in Somalia or in Kenya or Sudan. But for this particular purpose, it seemed to work. And although it's yet to be seen how it ends and how the ultimate durable solution is found, but the way it is now is actually the very fact that about 8,000 former combatants laid down their arms and joined the civilian movement is a leap forward.
Ethiopia has a long tradition of using indigenous conflict resolution mechanisms varying across different ethnic groups and regions. These methods often involve community elders, religious leaders, and other respected figures in the community. They focus on dialogue, mediation, and reconciliation, and restorative justice, often emphasizing the need to repair social relationships damaged by conflict.
The way Ethiopians now decide that they own themselves, they disregard existing practice of different countries and engage themselves like this. After all, it makes sense. This is Oromo versus Oromo. It's not like the Ethiopian government versus Oromo as it is. It is clearly people of the same group, so they can talk, and that itself is an exemplary way of doing it, actually. Whereas the other principles which I mentioned earlier about humanization process of keeping them in the camp, we have to learn from others because we never did it. That's never been Ethiopian history. So I think that part, the experts, we should fill in to try to advise them what to do. That element still we have to learn from abroad.
The expert emphasized that the act of laying down arms is only the first step. He stressed the critical need for a comprehensive disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration process to ensure long-term stability. This process involves not only removing weapons, but also providing training and support to help former combatants adapt to life without violence. For this, the expert urged the government to be meticulous in handling the DDR process, highlighting the need for a careful, designed program that supports the reintegration of former combatants and helps them to rebuild their lives in a peaceful and productive manner.
Laying down arms by itself is not the end of the conflict, but there is a process which you have to follow. That means the first one being right after laying down the arms, the former combatants should be kept in a very neutral location. The reason being for them to learn to live without guns, to adjust themselves to life without guns, which is not easy. So if you are in the bush for 5-6 years, having guns close to you, the closest thing in your life is your guns, closer than anybody, closer than police, the government, or your wife, anybody. So to detach yourself from this closest friend is one of the most difficult things. And I've seen in these different countries where I was involved in one situation in former Yugoslavia where it took us 2 years actually to disarm 1,000 young boys. Because weapons gives you everything. Gun is a source of energy, power, and it gives you food. Yeah. It gives you power, anything. Security as well. Physical safety and security. So during this transition of 5, 6, 8 months or in a year, you have to train them to learn to live without it. People underestimate it, but it's a very serious procedure. Without it, you cannot design the future of the fighters because you have to pass through this humanization process.
Now the recap of the top stories. Shaggar project said to enhance coordination and development in the rapidly urbanizing areas adjacent to Ethiopia's capital. And experts hail homegrown conflict resolution practices in Ethiopia. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching ABC World. That's it for today. Thank you for your company. Do stay tuned with the remaining program, and goodbye for me now.